Hello, and welcome to Conquer Your Chaos, Simple Strategies for Healthy Living. My name is Jennifer Shlomovich, and I'm a certified coach specializing in helping people pleasers become confident communicators. Each week, I post a video covering a different topic of covering health or wellness. Today's topic is going to be about emotional eating. My special guest with me today is Toni Marinucci, who is a registered dietitian and hosts her own podcast called Tips with Toni. She has also made various media appearances, including the Dr. Oz Show. Today, Toni, welcome, and thanks for taking out time out of your busy schedule to talk with me today.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So before we start talking about the topic of emotional eating, I wanted to learn a little bit more about yourself and how you help others.
Yeah, so my name is Toni Marinucci. I am a registered dietitian. And the reason why I decided to get into teaching other people how to fuel their bodies properly is because I personally struggled with my weight growing up. And like most people, I think when they're overweight and then they choose to then lose weight or then go about weight loss, they tend to go about it in a very extreme way. And that's exactly what I did. Unfortunately, I was very restrictive. I would undereat, but then that led to overeating, and then I would exercise excessively. And it was just a really vicious cycle. So I knew that that's not what I wanted for my life. I wanted to feel happy and content and confident, which is why I was losing weight. And so something clicked in me, and I was like, well, even if I did lose weight this way, I'm miserable. I'm hungry all the time. I can't focus. I still have zero self-confidence. Like, this is not working. There's got to be a better way. So anyways, long story short, I decided to go to school to become a registered dietitian to kind of learn healthier ways to lose weight and keep it off. And that's exactly what I help other people do. And through the years, I started learning that it's not so much about knowing what to do. It's about, part of it is the educational component and learning, what to do and how to do it. But the main thing that I think people are missing is like the implementation for them, that individualized approach, and then someone to kind of talk through all of the mental barriers that come across when it comes to wanting to change your physical health. Because I think the perception of what health is solely based off of physical and like our outside, but realistically, when it comes to healthy living and when it comes to being healthy, it's physical and mental health combined, and really it needs to come from what's on the inside. So that's kind of why I do what I do and all the lessons that I've learned in a nutshell, and what I want to teach other people to do as well.
That is awesome. I can relate a lot to your story in my own way. I struggled with weight a lot on and off. And then after I had my son, who's almost 15 now, for a few years, I was like over 200 pounds. And it was just, I was like tired all the time and juggling full-time work and being a parent and just going for the candy bars and that was a habit that was instilled in me at a young age. Just if I'm stressed or I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, go, soothe myself with some kind of food. And it was just really challenging, especially after having my son, to lose all of that. And when I was younger, I have tried the various like fad diets. I remember doing the South Beach diet. I remember doing the Slim Fast. And they worked briefly, maybe a month I would get like quick results, but then I would feel like really deprived and I would be really cranky. And I just felt like miserable because I just wanted to enjoy food and be happy. And I worked on my own health. I lost my mom to a heart attack 13 years ago. So it made me realize just how important it is to have healthy habits and take care of your eating now while I'm younger, so I can not have that damage later on. And so I eventually transitioned into eating vegan and mostly whole food plant-based to help me find ways to eat healthy without feeling deprived. I like a lot of flavors and I like a lot of things. So that's been something that I've been doing that has helped me with that. But yeah, that's also with my coaching too. A lot of it's the inner work. And I really liked what you said about having an individualized approach, because there's no one size fits all for anything. It's what works for you. We all have our individual inner stuff as well as just other things going on in our lifestyle. And when we try to like fit ourselves into something that might work for somebody else, we feel bad because it's like, oh, it works for this person. Why isn't it working for me?
Right, exactly. And we have to be also careful of how we use that word works, right? Like you mentioned, I want to put it in quotes, like it worked for you, like South Beach and all those restrictive fad diets, because realistically it's in quotes because yeah, it may have helped you lose weight, but chances are it's really hard to keep that weight off, one, or is it really working if your goal was to be able to enjoy food and you were miserable? Like that's not, it's kind of like saying like, yeah, I passed the test, but like, did you get an A? Like, like, are you okay with just like passing, or like, do you really want to like get the most out of something? Like, do you want to be really proud and excited and be able to mark that as an achievement? And that's where it can be really complicated to say that something worked, because then that puts the blame on the individual. That person feels kind of shame that they're not able to do something that honestly wasn't set up for them to do it. Like, so I currently, just to give you another example, I just recently gave a TED talk about the parallels between dieting, dating, and romantic relationships. And it's actually what my book is, I'm currently writing, what that's going to be about. And it's basically like being upset about somebody that, you know, I talk about, there's many parallels, but like one, for example, is like being upset about, you know, not making it work with a certain partner. And like, if you really check in and you're really honest with yourself, chances are that person wasn't a good fit to begin with. And they weren't meant for you to be with forever. So maybe you've learned a couple things, you know, maybe about patience, maybe about communication. So maybe some of those diets you learn that, okay, you know, I can't expect to eat all the sugar, all the fried foods, and never eat a vegetable and somehow feel good. Like, that's just not going to work, right? So, but like, I don't need to go one way. I can figure out the balance within that. So that's just an example of, you know, we have to kind of let go of that guilt that's associated with feeling like it needs to be one specific way, kind of aligning with what you just said, and really just practice kind of checking in with ourselves and asking really great questions about like, why did something work, quote unquote, or why did it not work, quote unquote, and just like kind of figure out what pieces of those things can you apply, and then what pieces of those things do you want to just say, you know what, no, not for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big part of it too, is again, just picking and choosing what works for you and what applies for you and your lifestyle, and not getting into that comparison game of comparing yourself and your life to like what other people are doing.
Yeah, because you think about, first of all, you being you is your superpower. Like, there's literally one you, and that is the most amazing thing that there is, right? And so there's that as like who you are as a person to your soul, but then there's also just like, you know, we all have different jobs, we all have different schedules, we have different responsibilities. Some of us have kids, some of us have 2 kids, some of us freaking, like, I have clients that have 4 or 5 kids, and it's like, how do you do that? Like, you know, like, there's just so many things. We have different allergies, sensitivities, we have, you know, different cooking abilities, we're on different budgets, where there's just like so many things, our cultural experience, you know, our religion, there's just so many things that need to be considered when creating an individualized, customized plan. That to think that there's a one size fits all approach at this point, I hope people can really just like stop trying to do that. It's just like, you're going to be forever disappointed. Like, there's not one magical thing out there. It's not that you haven't found it yet. It's not that you have to try it again, and you failed all the other times you did it. It's just like, we got to stop looking outside ourselves and start looking inside ourselves. And that's the only way we're going to get through life, not just with our nutrition, but our career paths, everything that we want to achieve in life. It really comes down to you knowing what's best for you, but being able to conquering the chaos, which I love that you say that, and really being able to just like sit with yourself for like a minute every day, just 1 minute. Like, even if you're on the toilet, we all get 1 minute, or you're in the shower, there's something you do where you're by yourself for at least a minute, where you can really just check in and be like, okay, how am I doing? Like,
absolutely. And I do this a lot with myself as well as my clients, is journaling. I am journal prompts, and it sounds so simple, just the act of writing or answering questions. But so many times, and I know from my own experiences when I've done it myself, but when I have clients come back to me, because I'll give them a worksheet that has like specific questions to help with a specific area, and they're like, I never thought about this before. And it's like all of a sudden they have these massive like epiphanies. And another analogy I like to use with my clients is it's like our subconscious is like, it's like all these boxes of like junk. And then let's say you have an attic or a basement and you want to turn it into a nice family room or office. Well, you first have to go through all those boxes and you kind of know what's in there. It's from various moves, but you haven't opened it in a while. And it's like, oh, I forgot I even had this. Let me get rid of this, or let me get rid. So it's the same thing with our subconscious is we have all these beliefs and experiences that we haven't looked at in a while, and then you connect it when you bring it consciously. It's like, oh, this is why I feel this way, or this is why I act the way I do. And so it's like that mental decluttering process that doing that inner work really helps, because when we help the inner world, like you're talking about, focusing inward, it helps everything else externally start to fall in place.
Definitely.
Your TED Talk sounds exciting. I definitely want to check that out, and I definitely want to include the link to that in the show notes. And
awesome.
When is your book going to be coming out?
I'm not sure. I'm self-publishing. It's a much longer process than I had anticipated. So I mean, definitely in 2021. I will say that I can, I don't like to make promises, but that is what I can say. When exactly, I'm not sure. All the chapters are kind of there, but thankfully I have a writing coach, because I believe in investing in yourself when you need help or guidance in an area like that's not your strong suit. Like, I'm a registered dietitian. I'm really good at what I do and helping people heal their relationship with food and break up with, restrictive dieting, all that stuff. But writing is just like, I was okay in high school, but like to write a book is a whole different ballgame. So anyways, he's been helping me a lot, which is really great.
That's great.
So, definitely 2021. I can't say a specific date just yet though.
Okay. Excited. Well, I definitely would like to check that out too when it comes out.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know when it's out. And I'll definitely send you a copy. Anyone who's ever had me as a guest on like a YouTube channel or a podcast, like, they will 100% get a free copy from me.
Oh, great. Well, I'm looking forward to reading that. And I definitely am looking forward to checking out your TED Talk. So yeah, I wanted to circle back to emotional eating. Like right now, COVID-19, I mean, emotional eating is something a lot of us struggle with anyway, with just busy lifestyles and being pulled in a million directions. And now you've had this virus and just everything else that has happened in 2020 that's been crazy and emotionally charged. So what are some things that people can do that can help with their struggles with emotional eating, especially right now?
Okay, well, first, I do want to just address that this year has definitely been an extra challenging year. So there's no shame, first of all, in feeling maybe extra emotional this year, or you've been emotionally eating more. Regardless if it's this year or in the past, like, we as humans have a lot of responsibilities. We go through a lot of different things, and it's okay to be emotional. And I think for so long, I thought I needed to be perfect and I needed to, be the person who took care of everybody else. And through that, and like for whatever reason, I know what the reason is, but my emotions or my feelings just never measured up. I felt like everybody else's mattered more than mine. Mm-hmm. And so even if I was having a bad day, I would kind of be like, oh, well, at least it's not as bad as it could be. And so I was like a huge optimist, which you would think is a really good thing. And it is, but it's only a good thing if you can first acknowledge that your feelings matter too, and that it's okay to not be okay. Right. And then we can choose to change the script and be a little bit more on the positive thing. So I kind of was just like, no, I'm fine. Everything's good. It's good. And then when you do that, what ends up happening is it's our subconsciously, or we just kind of find ourselves like in the cabinets or eating food on the couch or, sneaking candy bars or whatever it is. And it just comes up in other areas because It's your body's way of needing a moment to process. You're not really letting yourself get there. And so what I want people to understand is that, number one, emotional eating is very normal, and you should not feel shame about it. Second, if you think about the many other things that people or we can use to, sorry, there's a huge, I want to like let that pass.
No problem.
Yeah, New York City, like no matter what, you can't escape it. I need
That's
to
true.
like padding on the wall. So that everyone's okay wherever that emergency is.
Hopefully they're okay.
Yeah. So the other part to that is there's many things that someone can do to cope, right? So some people use food, but other people may use drugs, alcohol, sex, in like becoming like a workaholic, which is socially acceptable, but really like there's many things that people can utilize as a way to cope with their emotions. And I think that it's important to almost give people kind of credit for probably feeling the trigger to use a substance, like to abuse themselves in other ways, and then they use food. So I say that to say there are more harmful coping mechanisms that when you choosing to emotional eat over, say, binge drinking or doing hard drugs or inflicting any self-harm, that it's actually obviously we want to choose that as a coping mechanism compared to those others. And if you are struggling with any of the above, I encourage you to get some help where there's no shame, and it's, you'll feel much better if you have someone to kind of talk to help you through those more serious issues. So I just wanted to say that. But anyways, when it comes to emotional eating, there's many things that someone can do. So the first thing is obvious, like I think most people think about is like change your coping strategy, right? So rather than, using food as a way to soothe, it's finding things like you mentioned, journaling, going for a walk, calling a friend, taking a bubble bath, meditation. And listen, everyone is once again different. So you have to find what works best for you, and you have to experiment with different things. And sometimes that answer is going to be go for a walk, and sometimes that answer is going to be take a shower. Like it doesn't, you have to kind of just understand that, like, and sometimes you're going to be really great at being like, you know what, I think I want food, but realistically, I know that I don't. And it's just going to, end in a place that I don't want to be. And you're able to pull yourself out of it. And then there's other times where you're not, and you're going to find yourself eating something that maybe you're like, why did I just do that? And I think the important to note there is that it's okay. And what we don't want to do now is say that I quote unquote screwed up, and now I may as well just keep going. And then that leads into the diet cycle of restrict binge, which is really, really easy to fall into, which we want to do. We want to do everything in our power to get out of that. So really just focus on balance. So if you do tend to go to that place where you like went to a place where you think it's like that point of no return, I want you to be honest with yourself and just remember that there is really no such thing as a point of no return. You just told yourself that. You just made that up in your mind. And so that the sooner you can kind of pull yourself out, and the sooner you can go back to maybe just, you wake up the next day and your restrictive mindset says, I need to skip breakfast because I overate last night. I need you to practice eating breakfast, because it's just going to contribute to that cycle of under eating all day long, being stressed out, tired, fatigued, taking care of everybody else, neglecting ourselves, then rummaging through the cabinets, and then it goes through again and again and again. So changing your coping strategy is probably the first thing that most people would benefit from. At the same time, if we're a little bit proactive about things, that can help too. So if you're kind of on the verge of going for, let's say, so one example I'll say is for some people, if they know that they can't just have like a table, so everyone has like a trigger food, right? So some people, it's like you can't just have a tablespoon of peanut butter because you end up eating the whole jar. For other people, it's cereal. For someone else, it's chocolate chip cookies. For somebody else, it's ice cream. So whatever it is that you know that when you just have a little bit of it, you really can't control how much you actually have, then it might be important, if you can in the beginning, to maybe just not leave those triggers in the house. And so go for a different choice. So choose something that maybe alters your taste buds. So maybe like a cup of tea, or choose, if you know that like chocolate, when you have a little bit of chocolate, you want a lot of chocolate, maybe choose like a vanilla flavored something. Try to have something that might trick your taste buds a bit. And that, like for a fact, especially things that are in a wrapper or like individually sized. So like, I don't know if you ever heard of like Yasso bars. They're really popular. They're like frozen yogurt bars. They're wrapped up in a pack, they're like a popsicle, versus having like, a pint of regular ice cream. You might be better off with having something that's portioned, so that it's like less triggering to go back for more, or to end up eating the whole thing without being like, why did I just do that? But that's important for the person to understand and the person to know. So that's not to say you can't have regular ice cream. That's important to be able to like check in with yourself and ask yourself, like, what is truly going to satisfy me in this moment? The other thing I tell people to check in with is look at what time it is. So very often emotional eating happens around like between lunch and dinner, right? Maybe you're waiting for the husband to come home from work. Maybe you're waiting for the kids to come back from school. Maybe you're preparing dinner, right? And you're just really tired or exhausted, or you're cooking dinner. Or it happens when everyone goes to bed and you just want some alone time.
Right.
And it's in the evening. So if it's in the evening time, chances are the answer is to just go to bed, maybe read a book, do something to change, like literally just change the time, just go to sleep. And then if it's in like the middle of the afternoon, then maybe at that point, maybe that's when, maybe you've been doing early morning workouts, but maybe that's when you decide to do your workout instead. And it's important for everyone to really understand what works best for them. Some people need to start their day with movement, and I think that's awesome, and I think that's great. So they know that if they push it off, they're probably not going to do it. But if you feel like you could really maybe schedule a class at like 3 o'clock, that might be a good opportunity for you to kind of do something then. And then basically, I think the important thing for people to know too is that there's a big difference between physical hunger and what I call psychological hunger, right? I find that most people are overlapping and are in the middle of that. It's called the danger zone. So they really physically have not eaten enough during the day, and they're psychologically either exhausted, emotionally drained, or irritable, angry, upset, whatever it is. And now that's where the danger is. So I need you to practice, whoever's watching this, I need you to practice eating enough throughout the day. Focus on well-balanced meals, because very often you can't, if you're thinking with like a growling stomach and you're emotional, that's where it can really be challenging, right? But if you can, at least we can agree that you're definitely not hungry. Like this is just your emotions talking to you. Then we can come up with a realistic plan. But it's really challenging to say no to, like, for example, not that, and with my clients, they know that they can have pretty much anything they want. So if they love like chicken fingers and French fries is like one of their things that they love, or like a cheeseburger with French fries or whatever it is, and that's what they're craving and that's what they want, then that's fine. But if you're starving, like, because you haven't eaten all day, super emotional, and now you get that, you are not going to feel good afterwards, because you're going to eat probably past the point of fullness, because you're responding to the anxiety rather than responding to like just, oh, I'm hungry. Okay, I'll stop when I'm full. So that's how it can get a little bit messy. And we need to be able to like have people understand that there's many different things that they can do. And very often the answer is not within food, although it's okay if you do choose to use food as a way to cope, if that makes sense.
Yeah, these are all very great tips that you brought up, and things that people need to consider with all these things. And I didn't realize this until I started coaching myself, but when you just stop, pause, and ask yourself a question before you do it, And maybe sometimes you still might consider to do it, or you might do something a little bit differently. So I want to circle back to what some of the things you were saying in the beginning, like when I was, like right now I'm working from home. When I was working in the office, like I learned a long time ago that if I have a whole bag or a whole box of crackers, or even some kind of a healthy-ish chip, like I'm not going to eat a serving. If that bag is in my drawer, I'm going to go through the entire bag. If it's there, I'm going to eat it. So I would have to bring it home, put it in like portions.
Yep.
And then if I finished off the little sandwich bag, like I felt like, okay, I finished.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been a little bit more challenging at home, but I've been working on trying not to have the things here, or if it's like out of sight, out of mind, like I have it in a cupboard that I don't normally go to, and then I just take out so it's like I'm trying to find those little ways. But definitely the pre-portion things, or pre-portioning something yourself, putting it like a little snack container, definitely helps. Herbal teas are a huge helper for me. I love, that's something that has been a big part of my stress management, is just making tea. There's something very soothing about drinking tea, especially lavender tea. I love lavender tea and it's good for stress.
Yes.
And like, also like tricking the mind. That's something that I have told clients who have struggled with it, as for one of the ways I've helped trick my mind is I'll slice up an apple, and then if I put like some kind of nut butter on the side, like try to put like a portion of it on the plate, then I feel like I'm eating a lot of something, and then the nut butter kind of makes it taste a little bit better than just a plain apple. So those are ways that I used to have a problem where I would eat the whole jar of peanut butter or whatever, but if I take it out, put it on the plate, and then put it away in the cupboard and not look at it, then I'm able to eat. So it's really, like you're saying, really knowing yourself, knowing what your triggers are, finding ways to trick your mind has definitely helped me with some of these things. And what you were saying, and what you were saying earlier about the people pleasing, like I'm a former people pleaser, and it's what I realized is it really impacts everything we do, whether it's our careers, the boundaries we set with ourselves. So that's why that's been my focus as a coach, is because when we put other people first before our own needs, everything else just kind of falls apart in our lives until we start like being clear on all of that. And that's why I have this show, to address all these different health and wellness issues that come up, because we're all dealing with these things in different ways, and just showing people how that things aren't so difficult after all. There's things that you can do that, taking care of yourself doesn't have to be difficult. And when it comes to healthy eating, there's just little simple tricks that we can do. And I hope that this episode will help people realize that this is a normalized struggle that not just one or two people are dealing with. Everyone deals with it, and in some way. And also just wanted to circle back to what you're saying about getting help. There is no shame in getting help. I've used therapy a few times myself in different stages of my life, and it's immensely beneficial. And there's so many ways that you can get help now, whether it's virtually or in person. There's so many different resources out there, support groups. And what's great about the internet is you can find just support groups and different topics to just connect with other people, just so you don't feel alone, and learn about what other people are struggling with. So it's so important to find that help to support whatever your needs are.
That's a really, really good point. I think that, and it's important to do both parts, right? So surround yourself with people who understand you, who get you, who are on a similar path than you. And then, we live in a society where you look on, you turn your phone, you have like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, podcast, all these just information overload, and take a look at who you're following. And if who you're following doesn't align with what it is that you're currently working on, and if it triggers old behaviors that are not helpful to you, that are not serving you anymore, really just like either unfollow them, or, you can now do things where they don't need to, know that you unfollowed them. You could just make them like not pop up on your newsfeed, not pop up on your story, like
Yeah.
kind of like modify it. And there's honestly, you're protecting your energy, you're protecting yourself. And so it's definitely twofold for sure. So that was a really great point.
Yeah, and what you just said too is also a great point. That's something that I've been doing the past few months, as just select either who am I following, not unfriending people, but just not having stuff in their feed. And then you can just go check, if you still want to like see what this person's up to, then you can go on your terms. You're doing it in a way that you're choosing, instead of having it just show up in your feed. If you feel mentally prepared to like, hell, let me just check up on my friend, and then you can see what they're doing. But it makes a difference. It really does make a difference on your energy, because you don't realize sometimes how things impact you. And then when you remove that thing or those various things, then you realize, oh, I feel better, or I feel less drained.
Yeah. And that's a really good point too, that you have to try things and give it, like, I think that's what happens where, with honestly going back to emotional eating, I'll use anxiety as an example. So you feel anxious and you start to worry about what's to come, what you need to do, what you should be doing, or something that bothered you, and you start to worry, and that fear comes up, and it's like almost like you're want to vomit. Like, it's just like there's just so much stuff. And so to calm you, to soothe you, you eat and you suppress it. But when in reality, what would be helpful is to notice that if you can just, and this is where it's slightly where I refer a lot of my clients to therapy, but what they'll learn in therapy, what I go to therapy for as well, is to just recognize it. Like, oh, I'm anxious. Why am I anxious? Well, this time in the world right now is really, I'm taking on a lot of people's energy right now. Like, it's just a very stressful time. And the worst thing you can do is like freak out about being anxious, because that'll just make it worse. But it's just, let's just identify it and just like understand and like know that it's okay, and trust that it will pass, because it will. All of our emotions, they come and they go and they pass. And then it's being able to get through that moment without using food to cope, where you're able to recognize, like, I actually don't need food. Like, I actually don't need it. And so it's going through those moments and trying new things and leaving space to be able to do that, where you're able to learn, how something can benefit you or not. But in this case, like, recognizing that, although it's okay to eat emotionally, chances are the food isn't really what made the situation better or worse. Sometimes worse, but it won't really make like, it'll just make you feel it didn't change the situation. The situation's a situation, right? All it is now you sit with a different sort of feeling. But at the end of the day, like, the choosing to eat or not isn't going to change whatever it is that you're stressing about.
No, absolutely. And another thing that I also say to my clients is a couple things. It's important to feel your feelings, because, and I know this from my days of like, I don't want to feel this stuff and suppressing it. And then it ends up showing up in other ways in your life until you learn to address it. So giving yourself that space to feel your feelings and acknowledge your feelings. And then eventually, because when you sweep something under the rug, it's still going to be under the rug, and eventually it'll build up and spill out. When you just address it and work through it, eventually you'll clear your way through all of that. The other thing I like to share with people is a lot of it, I tell my clients that our triggers are our teachers. So it's something that's helped me learn, like when I get triggered or when a client gets triggered, it's instead of, you're going to have your emotional reaction, but finding a way to like pause it and maybe explore what that's about. When I get triggered, I like to, if I have the moment, find a quiet space, go in my room, someplace quiet for 10 minutes and just start journaling and ask myself those questions. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is why I'm upset, or this is why this thing triggered me. And when you take the approach of your triggers are your teachers, you can actually learn a lot about yourself and the things that stress you out and upset you.
Totally. So helpful.
Yeah, great. So yeah, this has been incredibly helpful. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to see if are there any books or videos or podcasts other than your own that we'll also include in the show notes that you would like to share with anyone viewing?
Sure. So the one I always talk about on podcasts is the one that I implemented very early on, I would say, in my entrepreneurial career, which is the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins.
Oh, I love Mel Robbins.
So great. And honestly, she uses the 5-second rule with like many things. I implement it in the morning. I haven't hit the snooze button. I mean, maybe like in the past 5 years, I've hit the snooze button like 5 times. Like I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what time I decide I'm getting up, no matter what, like, and I can't even express how much more productive I am, how much more energy I have. And it's just the littlest change I've made that I implement on a regular basis that has made significant differences that, I have heard like a lot to thank for that. So yeah, so the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins, I think is really great. And then as for podcasts, yes, my own, I am biased. I love my podcast. I give 3 episodes a week now. So.
Oh, wow. It's on my list to check out. I plan on checking it out very soon. I'm always like trying to like catch up with all these other things, but I do plan on checking it out this week because it looks really good. I was checking out your website, so I'm excited to listen to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. And how can people work with you if they want to check you out and work with you and helping them with their stuff?
Yeah, so my website's probably the best place to start. So to work with me one-on-one, you would go to the coaching tab. There's a video about my program there. And if you are intrigued, if anything said there resonates with you, I encourage you to fill out the application below it. If you're not really ready for that one-on-one approach, but you just are interested in learning more about nutrition and you want to build a healthy foundation, I have my Healthy Living Foundations course, which is under the courses tab. And if you're not ready to invest at all and you just want free information, I do that everywhere, all the time through the podcast. I have a free emotional eating webinar actually on my website.
Oh, wow.
And I have, it'll subscribe you to my email list. I give out an email twice a week. I'm on Instagram and Facebook regularly. So if you type in Tips with Toni in like Google, a lot of stuff will pop up because I've been doing this for a really long time.
Oh, that's great. So, yeah, you have a lot of great resources.
A lot of great resources.
That's great. Yeah, I'm still building up mine.
That's okay. I've been a dietitian for 7 years, but I started Tips with Toni. It was a blog when I was in college.
Oh, wow.
I graduated from my undergrad. So it's been over 10 years that Tips with Toni.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it takes time to build all these things, but your website is an incredible resource. And I saw you were on Dr. Oz a couple of times.
Yeah, as a guest. I want to go back when my book is out. We'll see.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Great. Well, thank you so much for spending some time out of your day to share these tips with us and just, talk about it. I feel like this is such an important topic that people have a lot of shame and I've certainly had my struggles with that. And I think hopefully that this will give people a little more insight on what they can do to help work through that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And I look forward to checking out your TED Talk and seeing your book when it comes out. And thank you for those of you who tuned in and watched. And if you like this, you can subscribe and check out other topics that will come out every Wednesday. All right. Thank you.